And I'll shout, "Good morning!"
In a tiny Pennsylvania town.
And then I'll turn around and I'll say, "Welcome to Groundhog Day!"
In the middle of a February night.
And then they shoot fireworks up in the air. The crowd just goes, "Ah!"
Thousands gather to watch Tom Dunkel kick off a time-honored tradition, what has become the world's biggest celebration for a rodent who predicts the weather.
Phil! Phil!
There may be no more famous Phil on the planet, but even better than simply joining the crowds who worship at his wooden altar in Punxsutawney is meeting Phil up close and personal in his transport cocoon.
Hey, Phil.
Coming out of his home at the zoo to cooperate with an investigation into predictions made by this prognosticator and those who follow in his shadow.
Big day's coming, Phil.
In terms of wild animals predicting weather, there is no bigger day than February 2nd, when the patron saint of seasonal shifts makes his call. Early spring or 6 more weeks of winter. Dunkel, president of the Punxsutawney Groundhog Club and leader of its top-hatted inner circle, says Phil doesn't play favorites.
He's going to go back to bed one way or the other.
But Phil breaks his hibernation briefly each year, Dunkel says, to scurry out, study up on the conditions, and fulfill his obligation as the seer of seers.
What do you think about this, that the nation looks to a groundhog to find out whether or not winter is going to continue?
Well, I think it's a fantastic tradition. In a world where there is a lot of serious things happening, it is something fun that happens literally in the middle of the winter.
But as investigative reporters, it's our job to take the fun out of everything. So our national team decided to run the analytics on this annual tradition, comparing local temperature and growing season data to Phil's predictions to see how often he hit the mark. The National Weather Service experts have long put Phil's accuracy rate at around 40%. But our investigation shows that for where he lives, he's actually right about 80% of the time. Oh, but we didn't stop there. We took our scientific method to the masses, crunching the numbers on dozens of weather critters across the country. From Sand Mountain Sam in Alabama to Sonny the Sloth in Louisville.
It's the closest thing that we have to a groundhog.
Asante the meerkat in Albany and Poppy the prairie dog in Oklahoma. While groundhogs dominate the game, there are also hedgehogs, lobsters, tortoises, ducks, squirrels, and even a largemouth bass. These furry, feathered, scaly, and sometimes even stuffed animals all make their own wild guess. With plenty of smack talk, that's all in good fun. At least we think so.
I don't know. Grandma always said you can't ever trust a rodent.
So they don't see the weather, they don't observe it, they don't know what's going on.
Compare Piscopeni to that chubby groundhog up in Pennsylvania. Oh, no. You know, there is no comparison.
So how do they measure up against the main man of Punxsutawney? We found that overall, on average, they're correct about spring's arrival in their area about 60% of the time.
What do you think about this trend of having creatures of all sorts predict the weather, predict when we'll see the end of a season?
Really? It's ridiculous, but there's only one groundhog, and that's Phil.
Joe Murgo may be just a smidge biased.
Hey, everyone!
He's been front row at Gobbler's Knob 23 years straight.
Phil makes a prognostication one day a year, but the other 364, he used to watch me on TV.
So we asked the trusted meteorologist and college educator to weigh in on our findings, which show that an Alabama opossum and Connecticut's scrambled the duck are actually outperforming that world-famous groundhog ever so slightly.
You can't prove them wrong because there's no set definition. It's the best forecast you can ever make.
That's why Murgo says you've got to really look at hyper-local data, which is exactly what our investigation did. And even if it shows the animals don't always get it right on Groundhog Day, who cares?
It is a day in February celebrating no matter what that things are changing. A change of the seasons is coming our way.
A celebration of what's ahead, regardless of what's picking the forecast, as communities like Punxsutawney give people a way to weather their way through winter together.
It's magical, truthfully.